Rivendell, meaning Cloven Dell in the common speech, is a translation of the Sindarin name Imladris, meaning Deep Dale of the Cleft. It was an elven outpost and a house of Elrond Half-Elven, located in the Misty Mountains on the eastern edge of Eriador. It is described as the last homely house east of the sea, in reference to Valinor and Grey Havens. The peaceful, sheltered town of Rivendell was located at the edge of a narrow gorge of the river Bruinen, but well hidden in the moorlands and foothills of the Misty Mountains. Pine trees grew on the top of the valley, and there was a steep, zigzag path to the valley bottom. The vegetation in the valley bottom was mostly oak and beech. The main approaches to Rivendell passed through the nearby fort of Bruinen. Rivendell was established by Elrond in the Second Age of Middle-earth during the War of the Elves and Sauron, when Sauron was moving against Eriador. Elrond led an army of elves of Lindon to the region to aid the local forces in resisting the Dark Lord and to defend Hollin. But they arrived too late, as Hollin was laid waste. Nevertheless, they were able to save some of the refugees and were joined by a detachment of the remaining defenders of Ostin-Edhil, led by Celeborn. Still, Sauron's armies did overwhelm the elves, and Elrond was forced to retreat northward towards the headwaters of Bruinen, until they found a valley which they made into a stronghold. This was the beginning of Rivendell. This temporary fortress, out of necessity, became a refuge for those seeking shelter from Sauron's onslaught in Eriador, and Elrond's and Celeborn's elves were soon joined by many others fleeing the sack of Eregion. Even more refugees came as Sauron ravaged Eriador on his march towards Lindon. In 3 years Sauron had overrun all of Eregion, and Imladris was besieged. The siege ended only when Gil-galad's forces, strengthened by the armament sent by Tar Minastir from Númenor, routed Sauron's armies and drove him out of the region. A council held at the time made Elrond Gil-galad's vice-regent in Eriador, and Imladris his permanent seat. Gil-galad then bestowed, in secret, Vilya, one of the 3 elven rings of power, upon Elrond. Short afterwards, Elrond married Celebrian, the daughter of Galadriel and Celeborn, who settled with him in Rivendell. Aided by the power of this elven ring, Elrond made Imladris one of the chief seats of elvish strength in the west in the latter part of the Second Age. Imladris remained an elvish stronghold in Eriador to the end of the Third Age, when Elrond took the White Ship heading for Valinor, and even beyond. At the end of the Second Age, Elendil and Gil-galad formed the last alliance of elves and men to challenge Sauron. They marched to Imladris, where they halted for 3 years, gathering their forces before crossing the Misty Mountains via the High Pass to the Vales of Anduin. Isildur's wife and his youngest son, Valandil, stayed in Imladris while the war was raging. After Sauron's defeat in front of Barad-dûr and the fall of both Elendil and Gil-galad, Isildur was journeying back to pick his family up when he was ambushed at the Gladden Fields. Following this disaster, Valandil, the last surviving son of Isildur, was fostered by Elrond in Rivendell until ready to take up his throne 8 years later. Receiving the shards of Narsil, Valandil took up his role as King of Arnor and left Imladris for Annúminas. Although Gil-galad has fallen, Elrond remained in Imladris, leaving Lindon in the hands of Cíadan. All the time he maintained and improved Rivendell as a refuge, sanctuary, and a place of wisdom. Many elves gathered there, and it became the chief dwelling of the High Elves in Eriador, outside of Lindon. The heirs of Isildur will also harbor there due to their kinship with Elrond as descendants of his brother Elros. Danger came to Eriador again in the Third Age when Angmar was established in the northeast beyond the Ettin Moors. It was late in the reign of Arveleg I that Rivendell was besieged for 53 years by the forces of Angmar. This siege was broken when the elves of Rivendell were joined by those of Lindon, and also reinforcements of Galadrim brought over the mountains from Lothlorien. The allied army of elves successfully subdued the power of Angmar and its Witch King for many years to come. However, 500 years later, Arthedain, the last free kingdom of men in the north, fell to Angmar, marking the end of the northern kingdom of Arnor. Elrond then sent Glorfindel and a host of elves to meet with the armies of Eärendil II of Gondor and Círdan. This army defeated Angmar for good at the Battle of Fornost. It was told in the Shire that a unit of hobbit archers also took part in the battle, but there is no evidence of this deed except in a Shire legend. Because the kingdom of Arnor was not re-established following the victory, due to the population being scarce, with hardly anyone remaining living in the lands, Aranarth, the first chieftain of Rangers of the North, and heir to the destroyed kingdom of Arnor, had his son fostered in Rivendell, as were all subsequent sons of the chieftains. The heirlooms and treasures of the House of Isildur, including the shards of Narsil, were also kept in Elrond's house after the death of chieftain Arvedui. Among these were also some of the few remaining documents containing the history of Númenor. A lot of despair came upon Elrond when during one of the regular travels between Imladris and Lothlorien, his wife Celebrian and his daughter Arwen disappeared in the Misty Mountains, being ambushed by orcs. His twin sons Elladan and Elrohir, as well as many other elves, searched for them for a long time, until the brothers finally succeeded in rescuing both elven ladies from captivity. The rough handling Celebrian suffered from the orcs was beyond the skills of Elrond to heal, and thus she had to take the ship to Valinor. Arwen, who got over this experience, became the foremost lady of the House of Elrond. During the quest of Erebor, Bilbo Baggins and the company of Thorin stopped off at Rivendell while traveling to the Lonely Mountain. Bilbo described it as a perfect house, whether you like food or sleep, or storytelling, or singing, or just sitting and thinking best, or a pleasure mixture of them all. Bilbo stopped there also on the way back to the Shire after his adventure, this time accompanied only by Gandalf, and returned there alone after his 111th birthday, writing there his memoir There and Back Again, as well as a lot of other poetry. Years later, Frodo Baggins and his hobbit companions journeyed to Rivendell, where they met Bilbo still staying there, as well as several other elves, dwarfs and men, who also arrived at Imladris on their separate errands. At the Council of Elrond, they learned that all of their missions were related to the fate of the One Ring, and they had to decide what to do about it. Sending the Fellowship of the Ring on a desperate quest to Mordor was chosen as their best option. Following the destruction of the One Ring at the end of the Third Age, Elrond's ring lost its power, and Elrond, with many of his household, left Rivendell to sail for Valinor from the Grey Havens. This marked the start of the Fourth Age. Although Elrond departed from Rivendell, Elladan and Elrohir stayed behind for a while with some of the remaining Noldor. It is believed that Celeborn also relocated to Rivendell after the departure of Galadriel, and having also grown weary of the fading Lothlorien. It is not known when Rivendell was finally abandoned, but shortly before Aragorn died, in year 120 of the Fourth Age, he said to Arwen that none now walk in the gardens of Elrond, indicating that the last of the Noldor had departed over the sea. If you like this video, please give it a thumb up and consider subscribing, as each takes just a second to do and will be very much appreciated. See you next time.